All right, this is Chris and Wendy, and we're going to today talk about an excursion on the island of St. Lucia in the Caribbean, specifically going to see the Pitons, which are two beautiful, sizable mountains on the coastline. And the theme I want to get at is, and I'm going to put them through all of my videos, is that knowledge to a great extent is more important than money. Obviously, unlimited money would be incredibly helpful, but every time I learn more about a situation, I learn that knowing what to do in many ways outshines whether you're going to pay extra for something. All right, so welcome to our channel, Chris and Wendy, Traveling with Chris and Wendy. And today, again, we're going to talk about this excursion. Is it worth it? Because we're always somewhat reluctant to jump on the excursion bandwagon and tend to like to do things ourselves, whether that be explore the town or simply get a cab, or often use public transportation to get around. In this case, the reason we chose an excursion from the ship was because we wanted to do something nature-oriented, and by far on the island of St. Lucia, the Pitons, I think I'm saying that right, it's spelled Pitons, Pitons, it outshined everything else. And we were looking to go on a hike and look at some beauty of the island, but we noticed very quickly that the Pitons are, well, physically not particularly far from the port. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive. And so we were quite nervous about getting a taxi and then having to get a taxi back where, you know, they'll say they'll wait for you sometimes they'll come back and pick you up. It always kind of makes you nervous. And at the end, I'll go into some detail about why it was really important that we did take the ship excursion. But ultimately, let's see if this is worth it. The first thing that happens is that I wanted to comment, I wrote some notes here, that the ship excursion was well organized. You went to the theater and they separated you into sections based on what excursion you were going to do, and they had folks hold up signs and say, follow me to the shuttle that you're going to get onto. The shuttle was about the size of a large airport shuttle. Just if you're a visual person, that's one of the things that I like to understand is, am I getting on a big tour bus? Am I getting in a passenger van? It was a nice airport shuttle bus size.
I think it held like 20 to 25 people.
Yeah, and we were a little nervous about this because this was going to test Wendy's ability to keep her queasiness down. So what did you do to take care of that?
I put on a patch behind my ear like you see many travelers doing on the ships. And I'm so thankful I did, because it was a long ride up windy roads, lots of bumps, and it really helped me.
Yeah, and it's the first time she's done that. She's gotten a little bit uneasy in the stomach during some of the ship movement and other things, but this is the first time she said, I think I'm just gonna have to do it. And she was glad that she bit the bullet and did that. So we get on the tour bus, and it's a 90-minute ride, allegedly, to the Pitons. They stopped several times along the way, and it actually was very nice. It ended up being a 2.5-hour drive. And again, if you don't want to be in and out of a bus for 2.5 hours and then a straight hour-and-a-half back, total of 4 hours on a bus, then somebody wouldn't like this. Now, I'll say a couple of things about the trip that made it worthwhile. One, it's an absolutely beautiful island. As far as beaches are concerned, there are a lot of wonderful Caribbean islands, but as far as getting onto an island and just seeing absolutely lush landscape, beautiful mountains, tropical environment, it was unmatched as far as what we've seen. Additionally, they stopped several times along the way. One of the first stops is an overview of the city and the cruise ship, particularly Castries, St. Lucia. So you can see a beautiful view of the cruise ship and a nice view of the town and the bay and the port area. Then you get back in the vehicle, and of course there's getting off and getting on it. And since it's not a huge tour bus, it wasn't a huge issue. And they're very good about saying, be back on 10 minutes, and 9 minutes later, you better be headed towards the bus. And I appreciated that. So you get back on the bus, and then you ride for a little bit, and it's very nice. And the lady who was in charge of it, gosh, I can't remember her name now, but she was absolutely fantastic tour guide. She gave tips along the way of what was going on with the locals and where you could stop and what things you might see. Next stop was an overlook and also a little food mart. So it was somewhat of almost like a public market, but kind of on the small side. And they had food for sale there and packaged items and some beverages and a restroom, which was quite nice. But they were free, weren't they? I think they were.
On most of the places, no, they were not free. You had to pay, I think, $1 to use the restroom.
Yeah.
There was one location at that park where you could go for free.
When we got to the Pitons, that was free bathrooms. So they had bathrooms, and if you want to pay for them, and we just really try to avoid that. And now if you have to go, you have to go. But it was a beautiful overlook. We took some pictures there and took a look at some of the food, and it was a nice little market. Probably spent 15 minutes there, then got back in and drove to another overlook, and that overlooked a town called Soufriere. Soufriere. I'm pretty sure I'm saying it right because that's how she said it. And from there, you continued on to the actual Pitons area. Now, good and bad. We love to hike. It's one of the things that we do, and we were looking to actually hike. And we've gone to some beaches. I think in the ABC Islands, I think it was Curacao that we went to a nice beach. It's wherever Kokomo.
Yeah,
Kokomo Beach is. There was a nice hike nearby, and we did that on our own because we were at the beach. We thought that we would have some free time while we were there, that they would be like, okay, we're here for an hour and a half. You do what you want to do, and we could walk around and see some of the trails. That's not what happened. So a little bit disappointed on our end. And in hindsight, they really need to keep things organized, and I think they're reluctant to just let people go off for an hour and a half. But we really didn't get to hike much. It was probably a total of between 0.3 and 0.4 miles up the trail to the overlook. That being said, it was a beautiful overlook. Absolutely beautiful. It's the type of thing that you see in images and in reels and other videos where you'll just go, this is amazing stuff. So it was absolutely stunning, and we really enjoyed that. Along the way, it's a narrow path, and you kind of have to walk with groups going there and going back, so you have to stop and pause. And we did overhear some people complaining a little bit about the hike. So on one end, we were looking for free time to get a lot of hiking in. On the other end, I think there were people that hopefully they wanted to get off the tour bus and walk 15 feet to an overlook of the mountains. And so I think they were disappointed on the other end, that they really had to kind of walk up and down a little bit, even though the grand total walk was probably between 1/2 and 3/4 of a mile there and back. But again, that's, if you want to hike, that's not a super big hiking spot. If you don't want to hike at all, again, that's not necessarily what you want. But overall, we enjoyed it.
I would wear gym shoes versus open-toe shoes because it was a little rough terrain.
You are walking up and down. They're decent paths, but you're kind of going up and down and over roots and up and down steep little areas. So yeah, you'd want to keep that in mind. And they had railings, and there was an older gentleman with us that it was really just a trooper and was walking along, and he did okay. All right, so after that, we get back in the tour bus, and we head down to the town of Soufriere, and they have a little beach down there. They kind of advertise it as a black sand beach because of the I don't know if it's obsidian or pumice, but whatever rock comes out of the volcano and makes these beaches. And it's just kind of a brown beach. It's not really a black sand beach. And if you're looking for the pristine Caribbean beach, this is not it. That being said, if you want to go to the beach, and there was actually some people snorkeling there were some areas nearby that were fairly nice and clear. So it was an acceptable beach. It just wasn't exactly your standard pristine Caribbean beach. It also had a nice little bar there, and people were having a good old time at the bar. They had some shops. Things are standard tourist prices, so it wasn't real inexpensive. And they gave you, I think, an hour to an hour and a half there, and you could walk into town. Now, when you walk into town, it's not the easiest path because you're gonna have to walk a little bit on the road, but it's maybe a half a mile away. And you're actually in town. You're not really in a tourist area anymore. So it's kind of nice. I mean, there's a few tourists there that decided to walk through there, but for the most part, it was locals. And so it was interesting to go see an actual ocean view town, Caribbean town on the Caribbean Sea. So we did that, got back in the bus, and then when we went back, it was a good hour and a half, and it was supposed to be about an hour and a half, and it was an hour and a half. We didn't really have any issues going back. They didn't stop in any way on the way back. So ultimately, was it worth it? Well, there were some, if you say that, we wanted to go see the Pitons no matter what. So was it worth doing what we did? I will say we talked to some other cruisers that got together in a group of 4 people, and our cost for the excursion was $90 each, which sometimes excursions are $120 to $200 and more. And so it wasn't one of the more expensive ones. That being said, there were people, I think, that spent about $300 for 4 people. So in other words, about $75 each to get on a boat. And it was only a half an hour there. They got to spend more time in the area. And I think they went to the same beach that we went to, and they got off and they snorkeled. But their time on land was somewhat limited, simply because they're on a boat. They can't go inland much. So it depends on what you want. If you want the ocean or the sea experience, then that would have been better. And it was a little bit cheaper. If you wanted kind of the tourist experience and the sightseeing experience, then you got what we got. Another option would be to hire a cab or a driver. Now, what made us nervous was the hour-and-a-half trip. And let me tell you why I think ultimately, to give the answer, is it worth it? We say yes. We're glad we did what we did because we're glad we're on land, and you like the comfort of knowing that you're going to get back to the ship on time. We like to watch the port runners, and this was kind of anticlimactic because there were about 70 people that were late, and they were all on excursions. And what happened was there was some type of fender bender, and they had to call in another tour bus to go and get people. And so they just had to wait an extra 20, 30 minutes until all those people showed up. So if they would have been in a cab and that happened and the ship left, it would have been a $1,000 excursion then. So ultimately we were glad we did it. We have great memories of going and seeing the Pitons, and it's one of those things that whenever you see it in videos or any other media, you just go, wow, it's amazing, and it's great to go see it, because anybody who travels knows that the pictures never truly do it justice. But ultimately, we really enjoyed it, and if you are there and you want to, I would encourage you to do some version of the Pitons or something similar. And so thumbs up to the excursion ultimately. And we appreciate you watching. And if you're in the mood and you'd like to, go ahead and like and subscribe. And thanks for watching us.